Let's plant some alfalfa. Not actually, but we're going to talk about that today. Once again with Dr. Don Miller, and Don is Director of Product Development with Alforex. And as we talk about planting, I guess first thing we need to do, Don, make sure that seed's ready to go.
Yeah, this is a good time of year to decide what type of seed you're going to buy. And it comes in several different options. You could have coated seed or uncoated seed. A lot of difference in opinion on what's the best, but most companies offer it both ways. And so really, if you buy a coated seed, you have some fungicide and rhizobium right there on the seed when it's planted.
And of course, you got to make sure that the planter is working. Don't wait till we start to get out into the field. Make sure that's done ahead of time.
Right. You need to make sure that the calibration is right for that seed. And really take note that if you haven't planted coated seed in the past, coated seed flows through that planter a little bit faster. And so sure enough, if you're using coated seed from using uncoated in the past, you need to make sure that calibration is correct.
And, of course, planting rate is so important. How do we calculate that based on what soil type and different things, Don?
Well, I think a good planting rate is around 15 to 20 pounds. But, again, what we're shooting for is at the end of the season, when about 5 weeks after planting, we have about 20 to 25 plants per square foot. Now, you could plant a lot of seed and have a poor seed bed and still not get a good stand. But, again, I think a decent planting rate of 15 to 20 pounds, and then that should give you a good stand. Traditionally, we've done cover crops. We planted with oats or whatever the case may be. The genetics are a little different. What's the recommendation as far as cover crops? Well, I'm not opposed to cover crops. There's a need for cover crops in some situations, especially if you might have some erosion. Also, some people like cover crops for the advantage it gives them on that first cut of feed. But I think the main cautionary statement is don't overdo it with that cover crop, because in a sense it's acting as a weed and competing with that alfalfa for nutrients and water. So again, just don't overdo with the cover crop. And if it is something like oats, make sure that you harvest that crop before it goes to maturity and it's not overshadowing that alfalfa and competing with it too much.
And, of course, last week we were talking about the stand establishment, and as far as the seed bed, don't sink deeper than the soles of your shoe. So what does that mean for the planting depth? Obviously not too deep. Yeah, alfalfa is a small seed, and we want to make sure that it's not planted too deep. That correct seed placement is really critical in getting a good stand. So we're looking for about a quarter to a half inch depth, and a lot of times I'll go out to a farmer's field, and maybe it was not the seed bed wasn't perfect; it was too soft. And at the end of the planting, he actually got the seed too deep, and that's one of the most common mistakes we see in stand establishment is that they planted too deep. All right, so when it comes to planting season, do it right, you get a good stand. That's according to our expert, Dr. Don Miller, who is Director of Product Development with alforexseeds.